Evening, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is June 16, 2011. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Hope you had a wonderful day, because we're going to talk about some dark and heavy energies and stuff, that baggage we hold on to, and see if we can learn to transmute or alchemize it with our special guest tonight, Tobias Lars, who is a personal awakening coach and soul counselor, also the author of one of my favorite books, Listening to the Sun and Awakening Souls, which you can find at soulcounseling.com. If you would like to join us for the text chat tonight, that's over at TruthBrigade.com. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to give us a call at 402-237-2525. That's 402-AFR-2525. It is so good to have you here tonight. How are you doing, Tobias?
Everything is beautiful in its own way. Yeah.
Don't lie. Everything sucks. Come on.
We're going to be talking of lollipops and unicorns and butterflies and cartoons tonight. Yes.
All right.
The happy spiritual path, also known as God, what the F happened? I thought when I would get to know you, everything would get easier.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so we've been lied to, right? It was all supposed to be lollipops and rainbows and unicorns and popsicles and peace and love. What the hell is going on?
It's kind of like the wedding vows, isn't it? Although...
Oh, shit. What did I just do?
Do you ever wonder why people actually faint when they're doing their vows?
I don't wonder one bit. I completely understand.
Why is my spirit leaving my body as I'm sealing my fate? Yeah, and marriage is beautiful. Marriage is a beautiful thing when souls can do it, but when we do the poor mimic of control, Yeah, the path. So tonight... I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but, there's been some heavy stuff on the planet lately.
Stuff.
What stuff? Maybe there's been some personal upheavals. I call them upheavening. Not that makes it any better. But, yeah, it's heavy. This stuff is tough. Doing your healing... when you speak up, the truth shall set you free, but first your whole family will turn on you, and your mate will look at you as if you're crazy, and your kids will try to control you, and vice versa. I was just watching an interview of Jim Morrison of The Doors, his father and sister. You can go to YouTube and watch it. And I've never seen this. His father, now Jim Morrison, an early angel, I would call them, Oscar Wilde, these artists that come early, Lord Byron before that, Shakespeare was a magician. But they're people out of place, Joan of Arc. They don't fit with the current paradigm they're in. And in this interview, Jim Morrison's father was an admiral in the U.S. Navy, and they're not bad people, but, they were freaked out. What's my son doing? And it's interesting to watch the interview. And all I could feel was Jim Morrison could completely understand their world, but they could not understand his world at all.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when we start expanding in those layers of the onion, right? These are all images we make up so we can sort of speak in parables to each other. It helps a little bit. That's why teachers do that. So imagine the layers of an onion, and when you expand to the next layer, you understand everything that's inside you because you've been through it. But you can't explain it to someone who's a few layers below you or inside you. It's like God trying to explain to us what her experience is like. My most terrifying experience with ayahuasca was when I went to the Siddha Loka, you could call it, a heaven of the Siddhas, the Buddhas, where they were sitting there, gold and silver and stone and alive at the same time, these 1,000-foot mountains of beings. And you'd think I'd go, oh, finally, this is the place of heaven and oneness. And it was the most terrified I got on any of my journeys. It was almost like I was more familiar with a horrible death spider creature monster that sucks soul energies and traps souls in the hell so it can drain their energies. Mm-hmm. That I felt sort of like, I know what to do with this. Mm-hmm. But when I actually felt the expansion, dissolving of my ego, this huge sort of existential, I used to never know what that word meant, but your fear of existing. Mm-hmm. The very being and existing is terrifying on one level. Yeah. And again, back to Jim Morrison, I love his stuff. If you actually listen to him, you realize this is not a drunk rock and roll star, although that's what we have to project onto him. But he said something, I'm paraphrasing, that everyone says how feelings are wonderful. The reality is they're effing terrifying.
Yeah. Feelings suck.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, tell us about these wonderful feelings, Tobias.
Everything is beautiful.
Yeah, as long as you're on the outside looking in, right?
There was a movie 30, 40 years ago or something called The Groove Tube or something where they did Bambi bouncing through the forest, and they sucked you in Bambi, so sweet, and there's her butterflies. Then all of a sudden you just had a giant elephant's foot just crush Bambi, You're in total shock. Oh my God, that's horrible. But that's sort of how we feel on the spiritual path. Let's get real. At times, right? Mm-hmm. And because you're dealing, and let's be real. So that's the reality of it is, as you're dissolving your ego and your cherished beliefs, oh my God, be the lie, right? Beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to feel crushed at times. It's the mortar and pestling of your soul, I used to call it. It's like I'm in the stone grinder and I'm being ground so I can turn into some leavened bread or something, is another image. And it feels that way. Buddha calls it suffering, And this is not that we fixate, focus, or get fascinated. You can get addicted to suffering. That's not what I want to project, talk about, share at all. But we want to get real with it. And the undoing of our old selves so that we can merge into something bigger, another layer of the onion, is often a catastrophic step. It is a dissolution. It is a personal Armageddon. It is a personal collapse of the structures of your old world. Mm-hmm. And the safest way I have found, the only way really, because you can't run from the energy, You really cannot. Whatever is inside you, the best shot at it is to face it and feel it. And I know you hate that lately, Christie.
I hate you, Tobias. It's all your fault. And all my friends on Facebook and everyone around me is like, what the hell is wrong with you, Christie? Why are you saying these things out loud? And
that is good. By the way, that's so courageous, Christie. It scares me a little bit, too, because part of me goes, oh, no, don't blame it on me,
Yes, it's all your fault. I
know. Exactly. No, that's very brave. It's very brave. And it's I
feel good about it. It feels kind of liberating and freeing, and like a weight was lifted off my shoulder. And, both of them. I have two shoulders.
Those other planetary lives bled through there for a second.
Yes, where we had one shoulder. No, it is scary. I think the scariest part, though, was just leading up to it and thinking about it. That's what kind of where I got the most fear and started hyperventilating and, consider, oh my gosh, am I really going to admit this out loud? And I had a little practice the couple weeks before I, wrote what I did the other day. And I said those things out loud in front of people. And it's like, wait a minute.
Wow. That's great.
And I was hyperventilating. I had to think about it. Okay, I can do this. And I just got it out, and smooth sailing. Well, that's a lie, but I feel good about
Great.
it.
For those of you that don't know, what we're talking about is Christie wrote this long letter, sort of, and just posted it on Facebook and wherever else, I don't know. But where she just said, I'm scared of this, I feel stupid, I feel effed up, I don't know how to have relationships, I don't know how to be emotionally honest, I'm terrified of this. Sort of like a giant confessional of what's really inside us.
Yep, I totally suck. It's all out there.
Yes, I'm dedicating a website to how I suck, No, but that's so brave. When someone reads that, they can feel your sincerity. And my impression of it is, you want something to move. You're like, well, I just want to get this out of me and confess it. This is the old, Catholic thing about confessing your sins that gets all twisted up and all that. But it's, somehow that truth-telling. Truth-telling is one of the most powerful things in the world. And this doesn't mean you bash your truth over someone else's head. It means you tell your own truth, which is just temporary. Truth is like, a Tesla coil when electricity rises up to the top and it sort of pops, Or the Jacob's ladder, I think they call it, actually. It's two pieces of metal, and this electrical thing rises to the top, and then it sort of dissolves at the top and starts from the bottom again. That's what we're doing. When you confess your sins or speak your truth or show your weaknesses, you're letting it out of you. It's like you're puking up crap. We've swallowed this poisonous stuff. Daddy told us, whatever, don't do that, shut up, I don't have time for you right now. And Mommy put in her, sucky love on there. I love you, let me suck your energy. And they don't mean to do it. God bless our parents and us as parents. No one, we're not saying everyone does the best they can. But to get those energies out of us, it doesn't look pretty. And it feels scary. I mean, literally in our ayahuasca ceremonies, you'll throw up stuff. We've had people throw up living, black little creature-looking worm things.
Yeah, or snakes I read about in that National Geographic article, To Hell and Back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or like metal balls of stuff. How did that come out of me?
Yeah.
Or gold flakes or strange things. It's our bodies are these amazing machine mechanisms, organic living, we don't even have a word for it, organic living organism mechanisms that have untold, untapped talents. And when you clean yourself, it can materialize into something that later dematerializes. Like when this little creature materializes in your throw-up bucket in the ayahuasca ceremony, then later it has dematerialized, but everyone saw it.
Mm-hmm.
It was an energy creature. Now, this sounds very familiar with, conjuring spirits and golems and, jinns and genies in bottles, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the truth that we are trying to hide from ourselves, that we are manifestors and creators and masters of energy.
Yes.
And we've tried to shove that and plug it up inside us. And then when we ask for spirit to come back into us, spirit automatically, part of its process, when the sun rises, the dark has to go, yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you rise the sun, the spiritual sun, the light inside yourself, your dark corners they will get exposed, which means that little thing you do that you hide from everyone but that you secretly sweat in your palms about is going to come to the surface.
Yeah.
And that's the healing. And it's so beautiful, by the way, once you get this and you do it, I don't know, the first 10 times. The first 10 times you feel like you're going to die, and then right. And then I had a good friend who was with me in the ayahuasca things. Corey, I said his name. I used to joke with him when he'd go through this heavy, dark side. He's in an accelerated waking up program. He's going from being part of a very religious churchism organization to doing ayahuasca in the span of a year and a half. That's the accelerated program. And he'd write to me about, oh, God, I don't even want to be on the planet. This is horrible. Why did I even start waking up, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I joke with him. I go, why don't you? And one day he says, yeah, I'm back to suicidal again. And I just started laughing because, I was just being honest.
What a lovely response. I'm sure he calls you back next time.
I'm the best suicide counselor there is.
Here he is, opening up his heart and trying to release those dark and heavy energies, and you laugh at him.
Yes, and I charge money for this.
Oh, shit. Thank God it's break. We gotta go. We'll be right back to Tobias Lars here on Truth Brigade Radio. Come back. Thanks for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com with Tobias Lars, laughing at us and all of his clients tonight, actually. We're talking about transmutation and alchemy of dark and heavy energies and emotions. But Tobias, you were, please continue back to suicidal.
Yes, saying from Illusions, that book by Richard Bach, the guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Illusions is a beautiful book, and Donald Shimoda, the master, at one point says, don't laugh on your way to your execution because, the people may think you're crazy. So excuse me for laughing on the way to yours execution. There we go again. So my friend, yes, so when he said, I'm back to suicidal again, and I started hysterically laughing because what I saw in my head was, you need to start a blog. Just start a website called Back to Suicidal Again.
There you go.
You're going to have millions of followers and just make fun of it. Just have fun. Be real, just have a giant clearing center for real feelings, because we're not allowed to do that, right? From the time we're I don't know, 5 days old, 5 hours old, I don't know, we're told you can't do that. Yeah. And that starts our repression, suppression, hyperventilating, rage, flipping out. He was such a nice, quiet neighbor, Mm-hmm. And then, but he only had 22 years of pent-up feelings, and all of a sudden one day his head blew off and he shot his whole family, Mm-hmm. That's the normal, unfortunately, paradigm we're living in. No one taught us, like you've heard me say before, 101. Here we are in 9th grade, or we should start in 2nd grade. 101, how to deal with your feelings and actually express them without attacking each other.
Yeah, or without blowing your head off.
Yeah, either blowing your own or someone else's head off. Instead, we teach that it's normal and natural to go to foreign countries whose names you can't pronounce and blow their heads off.
Yeah.
And somehow that shall then alleviate the pressure we feel every 30 years or so. Or, every generation needs to send their young 17, 18-year-olds, depending on what's the normal age at the current paradigm, to go off and massacre others and get massacred themselves. Talk about a blood ritual sacrifice. That's dark. That's dark. What is not dark is you being real and saying, Mom, my whole life I felt like you've never listened to me. Mm-hmm. What do you mean? And see where it goes. And it may not be pretty, and it may not, it may create some upheaval and some chaos for a while. But often, when both parties want it, it takes care of itself very quickly. But even if only one party wants this truth-telling, this freedom, this speak my truth and set myself free, it usually only takes about 8 seconds. That's all it takes. 8 seconds of that finally doing it. Actually, it's more like an instant. And then just a little bit of moving actual energy, and the rest is just afterbirth, you know. Often it's issues that we haven't talked about for 30 years. Mm-hmm. You did this to me. I remember watching the Jacksons, you know, the Jackson 5. Mm-hmm. And then they tried to do that show briefly after Michael died, whenever it was, last year or 2 years ago. Does anyone else notice that time is speeding up incredibly? And Jermaine and his other brothers, whatever they're, I forget their names, Randy and whoever. Mm-hmm. Tito, we all know Tito. He was trying to tell them what happened, why did we break up? And it finally came out, and Jermaine is crying. And I'm just using them because we all know them because they're part of the American, you know, background. And he finally said, well, when that contract was laying on the bed, I thought you guys, and I read it, it said you guys didn't really want me in the group anymore. You want to do your own thing. They had never talked about it. And then Randy and Tito and the other guy comes back and says, that's not what we wanted at all. Jermaine's crying. He's now what? How old? 58? 55? 30 years of pent-up misunderstanding, and it took 30 seconds of truth-telling between the boys, and you could feel this giant release. Now, many of us live our lives like that. 30 years of junk. I always say, yes. What would you prefer? 30 seconds of very uncomfortable, scary feelings, you feel very vulnerable and scared, or 30 years of pretending and having it gnaw at you at the Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah, or even 30 minutes or 30 days.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about getting it going. That initial thing is really just 30 seconds. Yeah. Of I can't hold it together anymore. I feel this. And if we can get to the place where we don't attack, blame is lame. Blame is lame. If we cannot attack the other, but just say it how you feel. I felt hurt. I felt scared, like you did in your letter. Mm-hmm. You know, your letter to the world. I feel inadequate. I feel stupid. I feel like a loser. All these things, because when we don't say them, they run us. They run us. Many men are run by the fear of being losers without money. Let's just say it, right? Yeah. And this is all contributed to by both. You know, it takes two to tango. Because the fact is money, you know, helps you get women and respect and families and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And for women, you know, if I don't look a certain way or if I don't act a certain way, then I'm rejected, you know, by the collective. Mm-hmm. And if we can say these things, because once they run you, I'll give you an example again. Well, I don't know, I've used it before.
Go ahead and use me.
No.
Poke fun and laugh at me, fine.
No,
I'm teasing.
You're doing good. In my feeling, Christie, you know, it's hard. This is not an easy path. Jesus sweated blood in the garden, you know. Buddha did not have an exciting time on a human level, you know, for a long, long time. Lao Tzu, anybody, pick any, St. Peter had a good time? Gee, let me see, I want to be crucified upside down. Not a good time, you know. Outcasts, often. We are in the best times ever on planet Earth today as far as you not having to conform, believe it or not. This is a time where there's so much chaos in a sense. There's more control in one way, but on the other way, in your individual life, there's more options than ever before. You can choose to be gay, or, you know, you can be whatever you want without being actually killed at the stake. There's this beautiful thing about let people be and think in what they want. Yeah, the money thing is the key thing. If you have enough money, you can do and be what you want, more and more and more. So I just want to sow that seed. It really is a fantastic time of dissolving of the old prisons, and therefore they're coming in tooth and claw to try to hang on with a last stranglehold, right? And by the way, I have a secret. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. The total global domination is not going to work. because Mother Earth and Father Son are in charge. God the Father, God the Mother are in charge. It's not going to work. Satellite global chipping of everybody is not going to end up on this planet. It may end up in some other reality, but it's not going to end up on this planet.
I agree.
Because planets have their free will choice as well. And Earth is a free will planet. It is not the Borg computer-controlled slave population planet. Those planets do exist in our solar system, but Earth is not one of them. And so that will not happen. There is a future where that does occur for humans, some humans. But this is the time of choosing. Well, would you like to have 30 years of turmoil or 3 billion years of computer, soul slavery?
Neither. I take none of the above.
Okay. I want the magic pill, and I want it now. No. Yeah. So there is these times of you're gonna feel, when you feel stuff you haven't felt for a long time, it's like you're coming back to life. It's like you've been in a coma. Parts of us have been in a coma for a long time. Yeah. Parts of our feet, if your physical body's been in a coma for 2 years, and you come back, you're going to have some readjusting to move your limbs and get your joints to work and so forth. Yeah. Well, we've been in an emotional coma. We've been in a spiritual amnesia coma for about 5 million years on this planet, and for a really serious coma, for 12,500 years. And so, as millions of us are trying to come back and to reawaken our bodies, our energy, our emotional body, you're going to look a little jerky. It's like when you wake up from a sleep, you jerk sometimes, right? Because you're jumping back in your body. So give yourself some leeway and tell people. I was telling someone the other day, get a T-shirt that says, "Stay back 500 feet, I'm going through my awakening."
I think I need one of those shirts.
Right. Warning, I'm not in control of all my parts at this point, I am a spiritual Tourette's victim. I will act out stuff at any instant, And that's what happens when you go through this awakening. Eckhart, think Eckhart Tolle was altogether, he was a terrified, self-hating, loathing, fearful guy. That happens that way. Others act out outwardly, Katie Byron, an awake American teacher, in my opinion, you spent 7 years in basically in a terrified state, ending up in a halfway house, just sort of a mental breakdown. So St. Francis's parents were sure that he was an imbecile. He just turned into an imbecile, they thought. St. Teresa of Avila, they used to have to carry her around. She'd go into these trances, St. Joseph of Cupertino was so in love with God, he would float off the ground while he was serving dinner. They used to not be able to let him, when it was his turn to serve the dinner, because he'd float skyward with a crockery, And these are true stories, and you might, that's all imagined. No, it isn't. And it's weird and acts out a little strange. That's why the crazy masters in the East, in India, they have an allowing for that. Or Native Americans have an allowing for their shamans to be a little wacky. Shamans don't live by the rules. They're sort of half men, half women. And their sex is with men and women often. They're like, androgynous.
So you're saying if you can levitate and float and such, it's okay to be crazy?
Usually, and if you have a lot of money, it's okay.
Okay. So have a lot of money or levitate. All right. But just be, you can, yeah, right, exactly. I'm just saying, in our current society, pretty much if you have a lot of money, you can do anything, almost. But
No, but if you can also protect yourself and tell people, I'm going through an awakening. I'm sorry. If you're a woman who's raised your kids, you can say, I'm sorry, I might be a little crazy for a while, you guys, or appear crazy, but I'm finding myself. That's honest. Mm-hmm. Or you can say, I'm going through a midlife crisis. If you go, I'm going through a Kundalini awakening, people might go, what's that? But, a midlife crisis, people, let them label you. So what?
Yeah.
It buys you safety and space. I'm trying to wake up this lifetime. I'm not here to live a normal life. Yes, let me get married and raise my kids and have them go to private school and get my 401k, and then I will die of cancer when I'm 66.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1 year after I retire.
Exactly, because I'm tired all over again. I'm tired while I'm working, and then I get retired, and I'm all tired, and I can't even get any energy back. Exactly. That's the normal program. Stupid. Ridiculous. Death program. But you can speak safe space for yourself, or declare yourself an artist, because everyone knows artists are nutty, crazy, weird, right? Mm-hmm. I am going through my artistic phase. I will act weird. I will dress weird. I will feel weird things. And you can just all put me in the artistic box. That's safe, too.
Yeah.
Oh.
There you go. I think I'm going to try that next time. Tobias, it is that time, so hold that right there. We're going to be right back after this short break. Stay tuned. Tobias Lars here on Truth Brigade Radio. Back. Thanks for joining us here tonight with Tobias Lars here on Truth Brigade Radio. And if you have any questions or comments tonight, don't be shy. The phone number is 402-237-2525, and I promise Tobias won't laugh at you. If you'd like to join us on the text chat tonight, that's over at TruthBrigade.com, and of course his website where you can get his book or find out more about his personal awakening coach services, soul retrieval, etc. soulcounseling.com or innerbodyawakening.com. Tobias?
Yes.
So this whole waking up thing, I know a lot of us, especially, people who listen to our show and such, they're doing all the right things, reading all the right books, listening to the right people and thinking, okay, well, this is supposed to be easy, right? But what about those of us who feel that, I'm sick of all this talk about spirituality, nothing's changing?
Yeah. I never promised you a rose garden. Was that Loretta Lynn or somebody? I don't remember. Lynn Anderson. Oh, my God. I'm going back to when I was a kid in Sweden. Yeah, the reality of it is, the Taoist master, he spends 3 years in a cave alone and allows the deepest reptilian subconscious energies in his brainstem to literally come up and manifest. They become physical and real beings to him, monsters, demons. Saint Anthony, also known as Hilarion, an ascended master, sits in the Egyptian tomb about the year 120 after Jesus left from what we're told. Mm-hmm. And he sits there and spends his time in communion with Source, with God, praying, meditating, living on bread and water for a long time in an old Egyptian tomb where there's pictures of jackals and Horus and sphinxes and half animal, human creatures. And they start manifesting as he gets close to becoming one with God. And they bite him, literally. That's real for him. It's real as this. Your body's not real right now. Right now, your body is made of atomic energies, which is mostly space. You are 99.98% space, nothing. Mm-hmm. So when someone calls you a nothing, you can go, thank you very much. That's true. and we are. So when he's sitting there, he's attacked by these things, and finally which we call Satan appears, and Satan is really nothing but a part of God, which is strange to hear, and we've done some shows on that, because it's all energy. there's light and dark energies. And he tells St. Anthony, there's no God. I'm the ruler of the earth. Bow down to me. And St. Anthony won't do that. He says, no, keeps calling on God. So was that a good time for him? No, not such a good time. And then Jesus appears, and he says, why did you leave me here for 40 years all alone? That was his experience. Now, that's heavy. We don't have to do that level of heaviness, but because the whole vibration on the planet is much, believe it or not, more rarefied, more available. The angels, the stairway to heaven, Jacob's ladder. There's so many people now in contact with the fourth dimension. You got to watch out who's channeling what. The veils between the worlds are very thin right now on Earth, thinner than ever in a long time. So you may be asked to give up certain foods. This is not by anyone else, but by your own soul.
Yeah.
You may be asked to change the way you operate, the way you've learned to survive, your automatic survival mechanisms of reacting certain ways or pouting certain ways or using anger to control people or guilt or whatever. So, yeah, you're going to have to let some stuff go. It's not a happy, happy, joy, joy path all the time. How could it be?
Mm-hmm.
We accept that that's not part of normal life, so why would the spiritual path be any different?
Yeah.
Your marriage, everyone says it's going to have ups and downs. Work is going to have ups and downs. Your cycles, there's seasons, and so forth. So, now this doesn't mean you wallow in it, but to learn to become an energy master, every master has to learn to deal with what's been called dark, demonic, heavy energies. Guilt, fear, worry, stress, outright manipulative, evil, control, soul control, all that stuff exists. So how can you become one with everything without that being part of you?
Mm-hmm.
That's just physics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no one here gets out alive, or thank you, Jim Morrison again, but no one here gets out without having to deal with the dark. I am grateful that God sends me attack or lets me be attacked sometimes, I'm putting myself out there a little bit, And so usually every week I get, some people attacking me or, whatever. And this is how you learn. This is how you learn to head it off at the past, to go, I can feel that person and scan them. Is there any openness, and do they want to have discussion and exchange, or are they just interested in lambasting me? And then I have a choice. Do I want to enter into that? Do I want to engage or not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Engage, Captain. Do I want to engage or not? And after a while you go, I'm tired of it. That doesn't go anywhere, But you have to learn to become a master of this. Mm-hmm. And in your own process of cleaning out, again, this image of, imagine that you've been living in a house, and every night after dinner, you've just thrown the garbage, the leftover food, and the styrofoam, and all the plates, just thrown them down the stairs into the basement.
Yeah.
And now, 30 years later, there's a stink coming from down there.
Absolutely.
Weird noises, and, So you open the door to your basement, your subconscious, and you turn on the light, and it doesn't look pretty, does it?
A little dark and scary and smelly.
Yeah, and some stuff growing in there that's sort of weird, and some creepy animals that have been feeding on it. And so when you open the spiritual path, you're going to have enlightening, beautiful experiences. And that's the way God love has to seduce you to keep going. Because let's face it, if God, and God tells me this, Source tells me this, says, if I told you everything you would be going through when you first started, it would have scared you too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it comes in a timely fashion, Again, back to a collective image. If Jesus knew he'd be betrayed by Peter and, had sweated blood and he'd be strung up on the cross, if he knew that ahead of time, now some people will say he knew all that ahead of time. I would disagree with that. But anyhow, so this is the old way, your own cross. Now, you don't have to suffer with your suffering, as Buddha says. Mm-hmm. So, and some ways of doing that, we'll talk about in the next hour, some practical paths, methods to actually deal with this solid rock in your solar plexus stomach, that twitch, that heavy tightness in your shoulders and neck, that cold grip of panic, fear around your heart, that dry throat, that hopeless depression sinking into what's the use, Why don't I just drink and kill myself, or why don't I join that other side and start using other people and not caring about them, And we can talk about some ways to actually, it's an energy battle. It's an energy game. It's physics. This is not about ritual. So we have to deal with that. And this basement of our own subconscious, the best thing we can do is to alchemize, transmute these energies inside ourselves. And there's definite methods of doing that. It's just energy, Mother Earth does not judge the dead tree and the dead leaves. She has fungus and mushrooms that grow on it. That it's just energy. Feel this. There is no garbage in nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no garbage. Garbage has been decided by us. We decide the concept. We invent the concept of garbage. In the natural way, there is no garbage. There's just forms. There's nothing wrong with worms and fungus on the roots. In fact, without a certain root, there wouldn't, forget what it is, a certain fungus on the roots of trees, we wouldn't have, the whole ecosystem wouldn't work. It all has its place. From a shamanic point of view, from a yogic mastery point of view, your first two chakras are mulchers in a sense. Your root chakra, the red chakra, mulches, composts your garbage energies. And we've forgotten how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Tobias, it is that time now, and I see we have a caller on the line, so we will get to you after this short break. Tobias Lars, our special guest tonight, soulcounseling.com or innerbodyawakening.com. Stay tuned. Truth Brigade Radio. Thanks for joining us here tonight. Top of the second hour with Tobias Lars on Truth Brigade Radio. Transmutation and alchemy of dark and heavy energies and emotions is the topic tonight. And his website is soulcounseling.com or innerbodyawakening.com. If you would like to join us for the text chat tonight, that's over at TruthBrigade.com. And looks like we dropped that caller or something happened, so feel free to give us a call back, 402-237-2525. That's 402-AFR-2525. Okay, Tobias, so let's say we decide to open up that basement and we find we don't really like what we see. It's kind of stinky and stuff. What do we do when we feel our stuff, our baggage, kind of closing in on us?
Many methods. You remember, we always have the right to say, you don't do too much at once. It's if in a toxic waste dump, you only go and clean up that, chunks of it at a time. And luckily, God, your angel source, your own soul, know the best way out. There are some that are faster, and you get more of it. There's more magical ways of dissolving things. Soul retrieval is very powerful. Sitting in the no-time space. I mean, if you're in a timeless space, then you don't need time to clean stuff up, right? Right? So that's grace. That's what masters like Jeshua, Jesus, and others, and you be around them. You can simply have a darshan. You can have a view of the master, be in the presence of the goddess, woman, like Anandamoyi Ma or Kuan Yin, and you can magically feel things lift off of you. And it works both. You don't need masters because you're your own master. But so the first thing is to develop a practice of centering yourself, of contacting God's source within you. However you do that, with someone like a Yogananda as a teacher, Paramahansa Yogananda, directly with Jesus Christ, Joshua Ben David, or Buddha, your own source, just your own higher self, earth-based religions, shamanism, the great creator, however you do it, you need to have a communion, come oneness into me. A breath practice, some type of meditation, some type of stilling. Be still and know that you are God, that you are a piece of God. Be still and know that I am God. Mm-hmm. This is key, crucial. Seek ye first the kingdom. You need to do that. It's like saying, I want to drive there, but I don't want to put any gas in my car. Well, good luck with that, I want to know God, but I just want to watch TV and I don't want to change any of my habits. Okay, well, good luck with that, Yeah,
I just want it to come to me.
I just want the magic pill. I want to go to one seminar, and just wake up. And I tried this already. I already released on my mother. I did 2 sessions on this. Why isn't it gone? Well, because you spent 10,000 lifetimes putting that stuff into place. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. Doesn't have to be struggle and massive pain. And in fact, there comes a time, but you are birthing yourself. There's a trepidation, there's a fear. Every time there's a birth, there's very few births on the planet that are pure bliss. Most births on this planet are still laced with some fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So a breath practice is what I recommend. I teach something I call one full divine breath. There's fancy Kriya Yoga techniques. I'm a Kriya Ban, they call it, with Paramahansa Yogananda's Self-Realization Fellowship. Beautiful, powerful. Babaji, an ancient, a timeless master. Krishna, really, in other times. Him and Jesus together are working for the healing of the planet. But you don't need that. One full divine breath. I teach seminars on this. Well, that's what we do. And you can do that anywhere on the subway. What if God was one of us, just a slob on the bus? Yeah. You can do it right there on the bus, just a stranger, I know. And Buddha on the metro. There's a beautiful French movie called Buddha on the Metro. All it is a guy who goes on the subway and he starts laughing, and eventually the whole place starts laughing. And once he's got them going, he moves to the next car. Mm-hmm. So it has to do with you transmuting, alchemizing your own energy, cleaning your own basement, detoxing each of your chakras. So a meditative, prayerful, I'd rather say it this way, a connective practice, something that reconnects you to Source God. That can look many different ways. That can be walking your dog. That can be playing piano. Talk about a connection. If you totally do music, you are in the flow. Yes. You ever watch drummers? Well, the reason their faces look like that is they're totally possessed by the energy. Or a bass player.
How do their faces look?
Well, they don't care. They're not even there. They're gone.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Or a bass player, or someone playing a lead guitar, or a singer. Music is
beautiful.
Music is of the muses. It's right. It's right there. It can be done otherwise. It can be done technically, but that sucks. No one wants to hear that. When people read the music and recreate it perfectly, it's dry, sterile, and dead. But so something that connects you, Tai Chi, Qigong, myinnerbodyawakening.com. It's the simplest practice God's source showed me. He said, look, just go back to basics. Feel your inner body. Merge your body, your physical body, and your energy body are really one and the same. It's just us making stuff up. Just like we made up the concept of garbage, we've made up the concept of this is spiritual and this is not. It's all just It's all consciousness. It's all an energy soup, And we are masters. This is the cool thing. Us humans and other beings, but us humans, we are pieces of what made the universe.
Mm-hmm.
We are chips off the big block.
Yeah.
You know? And this is not a big block Chevy engine. You know, this is the real deal. We are pieces of that. We are pieces of the holographic universe. We have the power to create, transmute, alchemize, and change and transform energies. We can make blocks of stone float through the air and build pyramids. We can float Easter Island heads. We can build Sacsayhuaman in Cusco. We can do these. We can float through the air. We can build seemingly metallic ships around us, but it's really the consciousness of us, our Merkaba bodies, our floating non-gravitational beingness. We have this power. And so when some master starts showing some of this off to us, we either kill them or worship them. But it's all inherent. It is potentially in us. That's why every master looks us in the eye and says, you know, what I do, ye shall do in greater things. It's not a lie. Is it easy to get there? No, because the guardians at the gate are going to try to kick you back. They're going to say, you don't deserve it. You're a POS. You know, you can't do this. You're the one. You know, you suck. Back to suicidal again is going to come your way, because this is how it is. Because you're detoxing this stuff inside you. Let me tell you this. I know that God's source and my angels and guides and masters that are interested in helping other souls wake up, they get turned on. Their DNA codons start firing. Their light bodies start shivering with excitement when one of us starts dealing with our dark shadow side, because that's where the action is. You know what's boring to ascended masters? You know what's boring to God? You know what's boring to the goddess of the universe? Is sitting and us doing ritualized prayer trying to put on a perfect face. That bores them to tears. They're like, oh, God, please stop doing that. Get real with us. Get real with us. This is not to discount love and heart and service and sharing and feeding the poor. All those things are beautiful when it's true service, you know. But if you skip dealing with your stuff in your own basement, all we got to do is look around, you know, and see how this base stuff. Where's the base? It's in your butt, you know, and in your sex chakra. That's where we've dumped it all. It's the same way we dump all the nastiness over there on the big giant garbage dump outside the city, right? And so we've made our lower chakras hold the dump, the garbage. And we think they're evil or wrong, you know. Your first and second chakra, that's icky, you know, and let's not talk about it. Or if we love sex, but it's kind of, you can't, you know, we're so conflicted about it. So that's where the cleanup needs to happen. Love canal. Love canal. Isn't that funny? Remember the horrible toxic thing in the 60s in the little town of Love Canal in upstate New York or wherever it was? They had to evacuate the whole town. Well, guess what, folks? Everyone needs to clean their own love canal.
Yeah. How do you suggest we do that?
Through doing what you're doing. Some, you know, confess your truth is a powerful way of doing it. Speaking your truth and saying, this is just temporary. I feel shitty. I feel terrible. I feel unhappy. I feel depressed. I feel hopeless, whatever it is. But you do it with consciousness. You don't kvetch, you know, and just bitch and moan. You know what I'm saying? Like your Jewish grandma. I'm just kidding. I love Jewish grandma. But, you know, you don't end up in circular spinning in moaning place. No. You do it consciously. Here's the horror. Here's the depression. You bring your presence. You bring God into it. You say, God, be with me here right now. I am that I am. I am the power and the presence of God. The power and the presence of God is with me. Right there in your fear. Right there in your hopelessness. You know. And watch what happens. See what happens. And it's no work. This is the power of the presence of that that monks hit on, or like Eckhart Tolle talks about, beautiful. Right there you just hold presence. You hold the flame will melt the ice. The flame will melt the ice block. Might be a 2-ton block of ice, but one little lighter flame will melt that ice. Mm-hmm. A giant long-term core soul learning process. You might have a core soul lesson in this lifetime. That might not leave after 2 easy sessions here at our weekend seminar. It might take 30 years.
Yeah.
But so what? 30 years is the blink of an eye compared to eternity. Mm-hmm. It might take 30 days. I tell you what I've noticed is if anyone applies themselves to something really sincerely for 30 days, you can move heaven and earth, and you have huge changes. So some techniques. The alchemy process, the energy alchemy process is what I call it. The energy alchemy process, you go to alchemyprocess.com. I teach and show you a way to become an alchemy of your own energy. The innerbodyawakening.com is a way to feel your own inner body. You can all go directly to God for all of it, I charge money for my services because I still, pay for a car payment and stuff. Eventually one day we won't. And love money. Love money. The best way to have something complete its role and be complete is to love it. When you truly love something, it becomes free. It doesn't stick to you. So all of you people out there who have mistakenly, and believe me, I've spent lifetimes there, think that somehow spirituality and money don't go together, well, then you're condemning money to hell. Mm-hmm. And if you condemn something to hell, it stays there and keeps bugging you forever. Mm-hmm. It's that same banishing it to the basement. Love your money out of existence. Say yes. God says yes, yes, yes. True alchemists like Saint Germain are masters of jewels and gold and money and affluence. Babaji materialized a palace with giant gemstones for Yogananda's master. Mm-hmm. Because they're masters of the physical. What, God can't handle money like George Carlin says? Apparently God is omnipotent, omniscient, ever-loving, but he can't handle money. He needs money. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's not hooked by it. God doesn't put money above life force, above love. Mm-hmm. But she certainly is not intimidated by money. Mm-hmm. Money is just a made-up thing. Mm-hmm. And as long as you pump evil out there by judging money, you're contributing to the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to undo money, love it. What I mean by that is not attached to it, no greed, no hoarding, none of that stuff. Allow it to flow through your existence as it needs to. That's a whole nother show. Mm-hmm. But, so yes, awakening your own, you want to get your own energy moving. It's like a fire. Once you get a fire stoked going enough, then you can throw stuff in there that's even wet, and it'll still burn it up, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a baby fire and you put all those wet leaves on it, you just put it out.
Yes.
But if you got the big, crackling big fire going, you can throw a whole bucket of wet leaves on there. It just smokes a little bit, but it took care of it, no problem. So the key is to get your own stoking fire, kundalini, Holy Ghost, communion, meditation, spinal column, wake up, thrill up your spine, listen to heavy metal music if you need to, whatever it takes. Get that moving, because when things don't move, they're dead. When things move, everything is movement. Energy is movement. Even stillness, sitting in the stillness is simply when you're allowing the energy to move through you. And that's very powerful. So learning an energy practice, a stillness, communion, connection practice, all of it's good. Yoga, walking, working out. There was a time in my life I needed to go to the gym. I had so much energy, kundalini, awakening energy going through me. You don't want to end up like spiritual people, floating off in their head and they don't even have a body. They're all like, hey, it's too woo-woo. You want to be grounded. I used to go to the gym, the gang-banger gym, because those guys kept me grounded. And it was cool. And you know, I've got to feel my body, and it feels great. You know, I still go to the gym occasionally. So it's different for different people, whatever the connection practice. But let's talk some more a little bit about alchemizing as well.
Absolutely. We'll do that when we come back. And once again, that website is alchemyprocess.com. Stay tuned. Tobias Lars here on Truth Brigade
Welcome
Radio.
back.
Thanks for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com with Tobias Lars tonight, talking about transmutation and alchemy of dark and heavy energies and emotions. Alchemyprocess.com or InnerBodyAwakening.com are his websites. And so let's see, Tobias, is that alchemy process going to help us become a master of chaos?
Yes. And I want to say thanks to Robert Bloom, by the way, who owns the trademark on Alchemy Process, and he's been very helpful in letting us use it for a little bit. But we're changing over to the Alchemy Energy Process, and we'll soon have the alchemyenergyprocess.com up there.
Okay.
But see, here's a great example. Robert contacted me and said, well, you know, I actually own the trademark on that. And I said, I hear you, and we'll change it. And now we're friends, and he may come to one of our local gatherings here in Phoenix. You know, there is a new paradigm. We don't need to involve lawyers every time, you know. There's a new way of cooperating. So I just wanted to mention that. It's going to be an event here soon, maybe when you listen to this, if you listen to the archives, alchemyenergyprocess.com. So yes, alchemy is simply all that happens in the universe. The universe is something is changing into something else all the time, or eventually. Sometimes you stay in a certain place for a while. You know, this remains for a while, but eventually it will decay or change into something else. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is energy being transformed, transmuted, alchemized, alchemized. And so we are alchemy masters. That's the cool thing, because we are part of that consciousness, God, Source, God, Goddess, that is the creator, creatrix of all that is. We literally are pieces of that. So in the alchemy process, the alchemy energy process, that is a teaching. It's a subtle teaching, because at the subtle level, it is open sesame, open says me. You know, it is change says me. It is simply intention, the causal level. At the causal level, we are playing and toying with walking in and out of the gate, the door of time and space itself. And that happens at the level of intention. When you intend, that is even more deeper, more fundamental than willing something. You know, willing is a little bit of efforting. Intending is that magical place of just sort of intending in it, and so it is. That's the place of magic of God creation. God doesn't struggle when she creates universes. There's no struggle. There's no heavy lifting. God does not do heavy lifting. God moves mountains, but she does no heavy lifting. Feel that. Feel that.
Yeah, makes sense.
There's no herniated discs in God's universe.
Well, what are tornadoes and eruptions, you know, volcanic eruptions, etc.?
Fun.
No, fun.
I know.
True.
It's not fun when you're in Tuscaloosa or Joplin, Missouri. I understand. It's horrible. I was almost in the big tsunami a year and a half or whenever it was ago, the big one that hit Chile, the 9-point-something. I was in Hawaii at the time, but I tell you, it got very real. That day it got supernaturally quiet on the whole island. Everything stopped. It was like a moment out of time. It was beautiful. It was actually very beautiful. As long as you're not trying to protect your possessions. What are you possessed by? Your possessions. You're possessed by your possessions. You don't have to be. You can run 12 companies. You can have multiple things going on, organizations and service and kids, and you can be non-attached and simply allowing not my will but thy will, God, with all of it. You can. You can. And then you're not attached to it. God is not attached to it.
Okay.
You know? So I know that's radical.
So detachment, I guess, is a lesson we need to learn if we want to, be a quote-unquote master of chaos.
Before you think that cold of heart and uncaring, it is not. It is sort of like this. Who's more effective when someone's drowning in the pool? The horribly freaking out mother who doesn't know how to swim and who's super attached to her baby and jumps in the water and starts drowning herself? Or, not cold, not emotionally cold, not professional and divorced from their feelings, but the one that feels God in their bones and nerves and goes, what needs to be, doesn't even think, it just simply surrenders to the action that needs to happen and jumps in the pool and calmly takes the child and brings it out, pushes on the stomach and belly, gives it a, the Heimlich, whatever, and some mouth-to-mouth and brings it back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Who's more effective? The unattached, which means in this sense nothing can freak you out because you never doubt that any moment there is a solution.
Yeah.
That's more compassion. Buddha is non-attached, but he is much more compassionate than even an over-doting mother.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And it's much more effective. We're talking about what's effective. The crazy attached person who freaks out, they're no good at all. You need to slap them to get them back in their body.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's not helpful. Whenever I've been in life and death situations, I've noticed that my belly gets very warm and I get very, very calm. So far, at least. Who knows what will happen tomorrow. But I've been around people dying a couple times in my life. I've been around someone dying in a pool that we fished out. I've been in cars sliding off roads occasionally. And if you freak out and tense up, that's why the drunk guy never gets hurt in the car accidents.
Mm-hmm.
Drunk person, how many times do you hear a drunk person kills everyone in the other car and they got a bump on their nose?
Yeah.
Why? Because they're completely relaxed. Now, they're in an unconscious, relaxed place.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get consciously faithful, how can I worry and stress if I know that God is with me?
Yeah.
Even when my child is falling off a horse. Now, I know that's extreme cases, but that's where it gets to. When they bugged Jesus and said, Lazarus is dying, he's dying, he's dying, he's dying, did Jesus freak out?
No.
He said, wait a minute, it's fine, I'll see him in 3 days.
Yeah.
I don't have time I don't have time right now. I'll actually go there when it's the right time, and then I'll rewind time because I'm a quantum energy master.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jesus wouldn't say it this way, but
yeah, of course.
But these are not isolated instances. They're stories of other masters bringing people back from the dead. They don't freak out.
Mm-hmm.
The disciples and followers freak out.
Yes.
You have to come now. You have to come now. You have to come now. They're going to die. They're going to die. They're going to die. And then we think the master uncaring when they don't respond.
Mm-hmm.
Because they refuse to play along with our guilt, fear, worry, stress, freak-out space. Yeah. And that's, where they have to watch it, that the village people don't get the pitchforks and the torches and come kill them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do we get to that point, though? How can we be in the world but not of it?
Right. So these, again, are the practices. You need to do, just like when you learn to ride a bike. You didn't just sit at home and play and go, I want to know how to ride a bike. And then you got on it once and it didn't work. And you said, oh, forget this. I don't want to do this. Right? Mm-hmm. It took you 5 to 10 times to learn to ride a bike, most kids. Yeah. So let me ask you this. If it takes you 5 to 10 times to learn to feel your inner body and start waking up so you can become what a Qigong master spends, 30 years doing, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah. I want to smoke cigarettes all day and drink Coca-Cola and be angry at God. Well, good luck with that. Have a good time. I don't want to be around you when the next tornado comes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, being a bit harsh there, but come on, it's time to call a spade and call us what we are. If we're not willing to do any of the work, come on. If you're not willing to participate, that you don't get to come on the hike. If you're not willing to carry your backpack and your lunch and you're a slug, sorry, no one's carrying you down and up the mountain. You got to walk yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of sluggishness. A lot of slugs around lately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do any work. It's owed to me. No, it's not. What does nature do with things that don't have their own life force? It kills them.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, it doesn't kill them. It just lets them die.
Yeah.
Well, I believe in that process more than I do governments.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, because governments don't govern. They don't know how to govern. What governs is the life force. It's the source that grows flowers and trees in your body and your eyeballs and lets you digest food. I say put your trust in that. Put your trust in that. Put your trust in that. So you need to develop a practice. I recommend the inner body awakening and the alchemy process. Those I do daily all the time. Because why? Because they feed me. They help me. I have my own process. I'm not fully awake. I'm not Babaji. I'm not Jesus. I'm like, I freak out about stuff still. And then other times I feel all this melting, merging, beautiful. When I'm doing seminars, God uses me because he says, well, Tobias is the best we can get so far, so let's use him. And when I'm being used of God, or any of us, or like if you're a performer, you know what that feels like. If you're in a play or you're playing music, you feel all this heat and warmth, and you just feel, first you're terrified, some stage fright, whatever, it happens. But after you get into it, you're like, oh my God, that was so high, I loved it. Or you're a comedian, you're on stage and you get laugh, and you're like, whoa, I feel loved, I want more of that, And that can develop its own problems, of course. But anyway, so, I'm a good opening at times, and other times I'm like in the corner sucking my thumb going, I don't want to talk to anybody today. And that's part of what we're talking about tonight. But I know that I want to be honest and real as I can with my dark shadow side, because if I don't clean that up, I end up as some preacher, having sex with 3 hookers in some motel. Hello, Jimmy Swaggart, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to have my shadow side come and get me in a denial phase. Can you say, Representative Wiener? Hello? Is it getting ridiculous? You've heard me say this before, but this one, God, is just flat out, you're not listening, kids. Here's a picture of his wiener, and his name is Wiener. Do you guys get it?
Yes, God has a sense of humor.
I think he's
What are we waiting for?
He's a little more subtle usually, but he's just like, come on, wake up, And then it's all over. Like there's a big fire in Arizona that's happening right now, and there's the local citizen reporter. Her name was Burnman, The footage they're using from her was like Burnman. I'm like, does anybody see that? No, they need it as obvious as Wiener to actually get it. That's how asleep we are. We really are. We're totally so asleep that it can be so obvious. It's like before someone points something out to you, it doesn't exist. But
exactly.
there is an order behind all of it. And if you want to know the deeper order, start contacting that. God is waiting. Source is waiting. He is waiting. She is waiting. It is waiting. The Tao is waiting to shower onto us these inner energies. But the programming has been very deep, and the learning curve is a bit steep at times. So keep on trudging on. One image God told me years ago, he said, imagine that you're tied to the mast of a ship, and you're going through a hurricane. Your sails have been blown off. Everyone is drowned and been wiped off, and you're the only one left tied to the mast. But your intention is carrying you through. I'm going to get through this. There's no way around your shadow, but there is a way through it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have times when you feel dump it all, F it all, hopeless depression. What you do is you simply take a breath. You still have to breathe, right?
Yeah. Whether we want to or not.
That's right. You're still being breathed, even when you don't want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wake up and go, I don't even want to wake up. Oh no, I hate the sun. I don't want to see another day. But you're still being breathed. So can you just place your attention? I'm talking worst case depression, holy suicide hotline, back to suicidal situation, right? This is the dark, dark shadow, dark night of the soul. I don't want to be here at all. Pox on the whole thing. When you're feeling in that space, which is about the worst space, okay? Rage is at least moving energy, but that depression of just total, depression. When you're feeling that, if you can't even get anything moving, you're not motivated to do anything, just notice that. This is Zen now. This is practicing the presence. Just notice it. And then if you want to yell at me and throw the book against the wall, yeah, baby, do it.
It's all your fault, Tobias.
That's right. If you want to take, by the way, God, I'm sorry, God, all that needs to go to you. It's, I'm just the messenger here.
Don't shoot the messenger. Well, one more segment to go, and then we'll talk about that. I'm teasing. Okay, we're going to be right back after this short break, so stay tuned. Tobias Lars here on Truth Brigade Radio. Thanks for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com with Tobias Lars tonight. My least favorite part of the show. This is the last segment already, Tobias, so please continue.
So I loved how the music came in at the end of the last segment as we're talking about to get to this place of feeling true connection with Source, with God, and eventually oneness, you have to raise a little hell to get to heaven, We're raising the hell inside us. Our bodies are toxic waste dumps in a lot of ways of saying it. We've had to hold emotions inside. We've eaten pesticides, etc. So our emotional and energetic bodies really are crippled. We are emotional cripples. Who do you know that is comfortable with their emotions and knows how to be open-hearted and appropriate and doesn't deny certain things inside themselves? Snickers, yes. That's Christie's doggy right there. And when her and Bentley had a love affair, Bentley was unabashedly after her butt all day long.
Until she whipped him into shape and taught him to meditate. Chill out, little boy.
Typical castrating woman. I'm sorry, Bentley.
Slow down, little boy.
Let's go drink beer with the boys. You want to go, Bentley? Yeah. No, I don't. How do we get on that? Yes, the dogs are naturally still Zen connected in the natural impulse flow of life. We can damage dogs. Cats are a little bit harder to psychologically damage, but we can dogs because they're so kind of open and guardians and willing to merge with their owners that they can take on certain discordant, dysfunctional energies from their owners. They're like our kids in a way. Cats are a little bit more aloof, and they're like, look, I'm not going to merge with your human stuff, But so how this stuff we have inside us, part of the process is the shadow process. One thing shamans do when they meet you, and they'll teach their apprentices to do it too, they'll go, here's the person. This is what they're presenting to you. This is their front. Right? And then notice there's a shadow behind them. The sun, assuming the sun's from behind you. If the person in front of you, the sun will be on their face and their front. And then there's a shadow on the ground behind them. Shamans will actually teach, they do this as a diagnostic tool, as a way of checking people who they are, what's in them. They'll actually open their third eye or get very calm, one full divine breath, shamanic gazing I call it. In the book there's a chapter called The Shamanic Energy Exchange, where I explain how this process works after I learned it. But basically they will look with their third eye, with their open sensing in their body, at the shadow, literally at the shadow that's on the ground, or the shadow of this person. And from there, they will instantly, or they will glean, feel, sense the shadow side of that person. And so unless we do this, so the shamans, you can't fool them, true ones or masters, because they see what you're fronting. They see what you're bringing to the front. But they'll also feel what's in you, and they don't judge you for it. They just know what they're dealing with, you know. And so when they work with you, they're not always going to talk to your mind. They're not going to talk to your front. They're going to make sure they work on your shadow, which is why often what masters do seems nonsensical or crazy, or why are they doing that? You know, and they'll treat each student differently, you know, according to exactly what they need. Yeah. You have to ask a question now.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to continue. Okay. Well, we just have like 6 minutes left, Tobias. So maybe we can talk about, well, okay, some of the things that you wrote down here to talk about is how we can actually flourish and enjoy riding the chaos. You know, because I think it's really important to, you know, we're all these situations we talked about tonight, we've all been there, done that at some point in our life, and I think maybe we need to come to a place where it's not so scary. Can we talk a little bit about the inner body awakening and how that will help us realize or attain that space where we are able to just kind of flourish and enjoy the ride and maybe realize it as perfection, not chaos and destruction?
Yeah, I recommend that when you wake up, upon awakening and before you go to bed, that you spend 20 minutes, half hour, hour and a half, whatever. It's not about time. But spend time in some sort of communion, in some sort of prayer, in some sort of meditation, in some sort of oneness. And actually ask. You have to ask. There are angels. Angels are energies. Angels, the basic law for angels or any help is you have to ask. That's why teachers say you got to ask and then you'll receive. Yeah. Because it's a free will universe, you know. Occasionally angels, by the way, if you're in an emergency situation and it's not your time to die, then they step in without you asking. You know, your truck's going off the, you know, cliff or something, you know. But
they'll lift it up.
Yeah, they'll take care of it. But generally you have to ask unless it's one of those emergencies. And so start practicing asking. Asking the source, your own self, God, Goddess, however you perceive that which is larger than you and made the whole thing. And spend time in a breathing practice. I'm glad to teach you something. You know, I'm glad to, you know, my stuff's available. The inner body is so powerful. Yeah. Feeling the inner body and just turning yourself into energy and learning to do that. Now, you're not going to, you know, it's like anything else, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's just like playing basketball or something, you know. And would it be worth the time you spend on learning to play pool or a little bit of that to learn to feel your inner body and learn how to know what your kidneys are telling you and what your heart means and why your large intestines does that, and you can heal yourself? You'll save a lot of money in doctor bills. And so some sort of practice upon waking up and before you go to bed, communion practice, and ask. And then also the one full divine breath. I'm going to do a video on that, by the way, because that we can do. I do this with clients, but I'm going to do one. And it's good to practice. And I do seminars. I love coming and helping and teaching. It's my bliss, you know, and awakening. And I'm very clear that God does the work. It's, you know, I don't think I'm magical in the sense that I've learned the hard way. I've been through a lot of this, so I understand what people go through, you know. Sort of like if you've been there yourself. So yes, the inner body, and then learning to do alchemy, that's a little more refined process. But people that have been on the path for a while or that know about, they can sense their own inner energies, then the alchemy process can be very powerful. The alchemy energy process is very powerful for them. But some kind of meditative connection practice. Learn to feel the earth through your feet. Qigong, yoga, you know, something. that connects you is very, very important today. You eat every day.
Yeah.
Well, you need to eat some soul food every day, too.
Absolutely.
Soul food is connecting with your dog, is being honest with what's happening inside you. Learn to feel what's going on inside you.
Yeah. Tobias, let me ask you this in regards to that. There's a question on the text chat, and I know we only have 2 minutes left, but it reads, so how can we know the laws of God?
Well, the only way I know with that is as in our humanness, we know when it feels of love of God. When we can all be in a collective place and something happens and there's some beautiful thing that happens, someone shares their open heart, and it may not be in a church, but it could be, and we can all, we know when God moves. There's stories that give you those shivers up your spine, and you know that was God, that was Source. We can know that. We have the capacity to know. So there's no specific dogmatic teaching that just because it says it's the way, therefore it's the way. That's tautological reasoning. It's like saying, this is of God, therefore it's of God, because God said it. That's circular reasoning. That's stupid.
Yeah. So it was written, God said that. Okay.
Right. That doesn't work. You have to learn to know it in your spirit, to feel it with your spirit. This is not fallen emotional feelings. There's a knowing that humans know. You know when a stranger stops and helps you that that's some beautiful, not unselfish thing. We all know that. We know when we need to help that person. That's what I'm talking about. That's beyond dogma, beyond religiousness, beyond ridiculous teachings about this is how it should look, No, that's what you need to go after. And the way you're going to strengthen your ability to know is to have that personal practice. And we can all do it. Remember that. We are doing it, but you got to put some time into it. I love you, Christie. Thank you so much every time.
I love you too, Tobias. Thank you. And once again, you can learn to decipher those energies by feeling your inner body. Go to innerbodyawakening.com. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom you share with us here every Thursday. And thank you all for joining us here tonight. Abundant blessings and love to you all. We will see you tomorrow night with Peppermint Jim here on Truth Brigade Radio.